Our program this evening will have initially Pastor John Zwern from Hare Havens Alliance Church to open us in prayer. John?
Heaven, I pray for these candidates running for office. Whether they win or lose, refresh them and encourage them. Give them the strength to make good decisions, both in and out of the public eye. May they give grace and receive grace. Because we are witnessing an unruly culture, protect these candidates and their families from angry, hate-filled speech and discouragement. May every candidate be encouraged by the truth that you love them. Remind all of us to trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not to your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight. Give the candidates wisdom that comes from heaven, because your wisdom is pure, then peace-loving, considerate, submissive, full of mercy and good fruit, impartial and peace-loving and sincere. And you, Lord Jesus, according to Daniel chapter 2, you change times and seasons, you depose kings and raise up others, you give wisdom to the wise and knowledge to the discerning. And so as we lift up these people running for office, I pray for wisdom, discernment, and the courage to make decisions that align with your moral will. Help them tonight to navigate the complexities of politics with integrity and grace as they answer questions and discuss their positions. When they encounter conflict, may they cast every care on you. And I pray that this evening will be governed with civility and your presence. And this I pray in the wonderful name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. We have the privilege of the IUK Republican Club, led by Dean Stoll, who will lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have 4 candidates here this evening, sitting to my left and to my right. We will have each of these gentlemen to speak to you for about 7 to 8 minutes as introductory remarks. We'll begin with Joe Rousseau, followed by Harold Vincent, then Mark Hufford, and followed by Senator James Buck.
There we go.
Yep, all set.
Can everybody hear me? Is this on? Yep. Okay. So as my first order of business this evening, I would like to thank Criterion Metrology, the Biblical Citizenship Group, the IUK Republican Club, and of course We the People Kokomo for hosting this event. As a candidate, I believe it is important to engage in civil discourse where we can share our concerns, our community vision, and the solutions to local issues. Good evening, and thank you to all of you for coming out and spending your Monday evening with us. My name is Joe Rousseau, and I'm a Republican candidate for Howard County Commissioner from District 1. I'm a lifelong Howard County resident, having grown up on a small farm in the Brucherville area. I went to Western High School and graduated in 1990. I continued my education here at IUK and graduated with a Bachelor of Science degree in Biological and Physical Science. In 2001, I married my best friend, Andrea. She and I will be celebrating 25 years of marriage this August. We have 4 wonderful children, Rachel, Isaac, Claire, and Jacob. My family is my greatest achievement, and I have a vested interest to ensure that they have a future in this county if they decide to stay here. In terms of leadership, I've held many chairmanship and vice chairmanship roles within the Global Electronics Association. That group is an international standards consortia for the electronics industry. Locally, I've been a leader in the Hoosier 4-H'er Club, and I'm also a member of my parish council for St. Joan of Arc and Patrick parishes. And finally, I'm also an elected precinct committeeman. And I'm running because I believe Howard County deserves leadership that is fully transparent, informed, and accountable to the people. I believe that we as citizens need our voice returned to government. Over the last 2 years, I've spent time researching some of the biggest challenges that we face in this county, whether that's large-scale solar developments, our jail situation, or the long-term tax impacts that we will be experiencing as a result of SB 1. What I have found is that too often decisions are made without clear communication, without consistency, and without fully considering the long-term impacts to both taxpayers and landowners. With respect to solar development, this really comes down to two principles: property rights and zoning. In Indiana, local government has the authority and the responsibility to set clear standards for how these projects are sited and managed. State law provides guidance, but ultimately this comes down to what we put in our ordinances and how we enforce those ordinances. We should use that authority to place into effect real protections for non-participating landowners. That starts by making sure that the projects are far enough away to protect neighbors from nuisances, and that screening like trees and barriers are maintained, not just placed and then forgotten. When it comes to property values, we need to be honest. Under Indiana law, property value is not automatically protected unless it specifically is addressed in an ordinance. That means if we want to protect people's property values, then we have to be intentional about it, either through making stronger standards that reduce the impact in the first place, or by considering structured protections that hold developers accountable. At the end of the day, good zoning protects everyone's property rights, not just those that benefit from a project. And if we're going to allow these projects, then we need to make certain that non-participating landowners are not shouldering all the risk. With respect to the jail issue, I think it's important to be honest how we got here. The need for a new facility did not arise overnight. It's the result of long-standing issues identified in the jail review, including capacity limits, operational challenges, and compliance concerns. If we don't address those root causes, then we basically won't solve the problem by building a new jail. A new building without fixing the problems ultimately leads to a more expensive problem. Taxpayers deserve a plan that is transparent, financially responsible, and focused not just on the construction, but on long-term operations and accountability. Now, one of the issues that keeps getting brought up to me is that I don't come from a career in government. And I think it's important that I address this. I bring 23 years of running a business, managing budgets, making payroll, negotiating contracts, and making decisions where they have real consequences if you get it wrong. In my world, I don't get to pass the buck when something doesn't work properly. You have to solve the problem, you've got to be accountable, and you've got to get it right. And that's the mindset I bring to this role. Now, I respect government experience because that does matter. But experience alone isn't enough if it isn't delivering the kind of transparency, the consistency, the long-term thinking that the people expect and deserve. So while I may not be a career politician, I consider that a strength. I bring an outside perspective, a track record of solving real problems, and a commitment to making decisions that take into account the interests of the people in this community, not just maintaining the status quo. At the end of the day, this position is about leadership. It's about judgment. It's about accountability. And that's exactly what I will bring to this role as commissioner. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Joe. We'll now have our next candidate running for sheriff, Harold Vincent.
Thank you very much, Joe. What he said. Can't see everybody over that way. All right. There we go. There we go. Too many marbles. My name is Harold Vincent. I'm a lifelong resident of Howard County, 65 years. Grew up only about 8 blocks from here, over in the 1100 block of South Wabash. Graduate of Kokomo High School, but I've been in every high school in this county in one capacity or other. Finding them doors open at night to a teaching dare in all the elementary schools at one time or another. Again, I would like to thank we the people of Kokomo, the Republican Citizenship in Modern America, the IUK Republican Club, and Criterion Meteorology LLC. Seems like we hear that word LLC a whole lot, but this is one of them that I definitely think we can be proud of. My training is outlined on a card out in the lobby. I could go through all the amount of training that I've been, but most of you in this room know me. You know that training has been put to the test multiple times. 28 years at the Sheriff's Department, 3.5 years at the Greentown Police Department as Deputy Marshal, 4 years as a Communications Officer for the Kokomo Police Department, Kokomo Fire Department, 35 years of law enforcement, and also in the private sector. When I retired from the Sheriff's Department, I went out and ran Green Acres Golf Course for about 6.5 years. I didn't know diddly squat about running a golf course, but they hired me because I know people, and we made it very successful. The year before I went out there, the windows were boarded up, and now it's very successful. It's running really, really well, and I'm proud to be able to put that feather in my cap. So my training credentials, like I said, are listed outside, and but one of the things that's not on that is the amount of trials and tribulations that I've put myself through in life that will equate out to what I believe will be a good sheriff. I've made some very poor decisions in my personal life in the past, very poor. And with that, I failed those tests miserably. But with that, the failure of those tests has also given me a testimony, of which from looking around this room and knowing a lot of you from this community, a lot of you have a testimony as well, as there are no real saints in church unless they're on a painting on the wall. So I'm just one of them kind of guys that keeps it real. I'm all about those that go and have salvation, but I'm really for those that take that next step and go to surrender and let Him take charge. And that's a big jump, but that's to the point. That's the place that we've got to be. I'm getting ready to tell you what I'd like to accomplish if I do get that seat. So buckle up and hang on, because this is pretty intense. Our outlook in our political climate here in Kokomo, Howard County, the state even all the way to Washington, is incredibly uglier, and it seems like it's been getting uglier now for many, many years. Not just recently, but for a long time. And there comes a point in time that I believe I have been tried and tested for this very particular moment. For this particular moment, there's a reason why I'm still standing. There were so many people that counted me out before, but I'm still here. 84,000 people in this county, 84,072. Minus the children, that leaves about 38,000, 37,000 of adults. I can think of scores of law enforcement officials and business people, both men and women, that would make great sheriffs. You don't have to be a police officer to be a sheriff. But there's plenty of people that could be great sheriffs, but we've made the process so ugly and so hard to obtain. And that's one of the things that I want to show, that it can be done. I'm not going to tell the younger crowd behind me how to do it. I'm going to show them how it's done. Because trust me, if I can sit up here and do what I'm going to do, you have to be able to be vulnerable to do this. You've got to put yourself out there. And God knows how many times I've been slapped around, slapped down, but I've still managed to get up. I'm still up. And that's the reason why right there. Again, our local politics, I think, is pretty much like it is across the board. It's very ugly. Seems like it's getting uglier. There's a lot of things that's going on in our community that I think the sheriff could be and or should be doing, and that's what I will be. A lot of you, I recognize some of you from a lot of the public events that's been here. Okay, I got to speed up. But bottom line, if it's shady, I will put a light on it. If it's illegal, I'll arrest them for it. And if it's corrupt business, I'll expose it. That's the bottom line. I'm not one of those kind of guys that's going to stay in my lane. There's 3 documents that really govern what should govern the sheriff's office. There's all kinds of state statutes and things of that nature. The Bible, the U.S. Constitution, and the state constitution. If you go by those three written documents, you pretty much got this job nailed down. And listening to the people. I've listened to you now for several years. I know what you want. I think you've made that very clear to me. Some of the things I want to jump on right away is I will not scramble our frequencies. If it goes out over the air and it originates from the Howard County Sheriff's Department, jail frequency included, you're going to hear it. You're going to hear it. I may have to police up the jail staff, get them to clean it up a little bit so it doesn't sound like a CB radio, but you're going to hear it. You deserve to hear it. That's your tax dollars at work. Okay, we're getting close. I will be having a podcast because I believe we need to be much more transparent than what we are, similar to what the Grant County Sheriff does. We will have that podcast every week. I'll tell you all the good things that my men and women of the department does. I'll also tell you the stuff that we did that wasn't that great. But you're going to know, you're going to hear it, you're going to know it. One of the things is, if we don't get this new jail off the ground in a very safe manner, then it's for naught. I agree with Joe. If you read that 167, 168 page report, the jail's nice. What they're going to do with it, it's nice. Whatever they build, I can run. There's no doubt in my mind I can run it. But we still haven't really addressed some of the problems that's listed on the back part of that report. I encourage you to go get that report. I'm going to have a qualified hiring and promotional program, especially in the jail. No more of the good old boy systems and DEI promotions. And we're in the final corner, and I've got a long list of stuff. I'll be happy to talk to you later on.
Thank you, Harold. Our third candidate this evening is Mark Hubbard. He's a candidate for District 38, State Representative. Mark.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. Thank you for this event facility. Police officer here tonight. Those of you who have inconvenienced yourself to come out here tonight and get engaged, I appreciate that. I'm Mark Hubbard. I'm from Carroll County. I was born and raised in Carroll County in an agricultural family and a construction company family. I've served as a pastor, as a business owner, as a husband for 30 years, and a father of 6 and grandfather of 2. Very blessed in so many ways. You may ask, why am I up here? I'm not here because I need to be here. I don't need to run for state representative. I don't get my value from it. I don't get my identity from it. And at $33,000 a year, I'm not going to make a wage from it very much. So you may say, why? Why would I, the last several months, inconvenience myself, be gone tonight? My daughter gets married this Saturday, and I'm here tonight, and I'll be in Carroll County tomorrow night. Why? Well, here's why. I live my life by 2 guiding principles when it comes to government. I believe that God has designed 3 roles of government: the family government, the church government, and civil government. I believe each has a lane that God has foreordained that each of those are to stay in. And when civil government does something to harm the family government, the civil government's outside of its lane. That happened during COVID. I was serving as a pastor at Carroll County in Flora, Indiana at the time, and the health department sent out a letter saying that our government, our stores could not serve anybody who did not have a mask on. The local IGA owner came to me, he was my neighbor, and he said, how am I supposed to do this? What am I supposed to do about this? And you have to understand, folks, I come from a Mennonite, Amish, Brethren background. That means I was raised, you do not get involved in politics. My family still does not support this. I'm not up here because I'm getting support at home. There's family members still at home that don't agree with what I'm doing here. But just like there with COVID, it's like, this isn't right. Government has got outside of its lane. And I prayed about it. I was like, what do we do about it? And it came to my mind that we could do a petition of grievance. And so I wrote it up. I didn't know what I was doing. I took it out to the business owners, had a wonderful response from the business owners because they were feeling the physical effects of this mandate that was coming from the State House down to the local government officials. And lo and behold, the citizens of Carroll County filled those petitions out, and lo and behold, the health director rescinded that bill or that edict, and life continued on as normal in Carroll County. But what happened with that was that we can make a difference if we get involved. Well, my pastoral friends found out that I was somebody who was willing to be willing to serve in the community beyond just filling the pulpit and preaching the gospel message, which I'm passionate about. They came to me and they said, Mark, we got an issue in the State House. We got a state representative who's the leading advocate to legalize marijuana in the state of Indiana. This is a social evil. Every state that has legalized it has paid the price. They came to me and they said, would you run against the current incumbent? And I will tell you forthright, undeniably, I said no. Because I don't need to be in the State House. But after praying about it for literally months, I felt like the Lord was saying, no, Mark, this is the lane I want you to run in. And so at the end of 2025, I said, okay, I will run. And so that's why I'm sitting up here tonight. These two guiding principles that I live my life by when it comes in relation to the government, the civil government is one in Proverbs. It says, when the righteous rule, the people rejoice, but when the wicked rule, the people mourn.
That's right.
That tells me there can be righteous rule, not righteousness based on my definition, but on God's definition of righteousness. There also can be wicked rule. And we've seen that, especially by one predominant political party in our nation. I believe they've made a pact with the devil. And here's the reality. The other guiding principle is found in Romans chapter 13. It says there, the Apostle Paul makes it very clear what the role of civil government is. It's to punish the evildoer and reward those who do well. That tells me, there again, there is evil, there is bad behavior that needs to be discouraged by civil government, and there is good behavior that needs to be rewarded. That's how I approach governance. If I get elected, if the people of District 38 choose to send me to the State House, that is how I will rule. I already told Heath Van Natter. I've had a good conversation with him. I would call ourselves friends, but I said, you warn the Republican establishment. I've heard how they like to strong-arm people, and how they expect you to be a game player, and how they expect to come down and you play by their rules. When I was down at the State House, back testifying against the solar, wind, and data projects last year, one of the first things I said, you can find this if you go back and find the recording of the State House testimony, as I said, every one of you gentlemen and ladies that are sitting up here on this committee has a short abbreviation in front of your name, and that word is REP. And I said, the last I thought, I understood that means representative. Too many State House people are paid for by lobbyist groups. And if you want to argue that, and the senator might, you go look at their campaign funds. Find out where their money comes from. Because the representative who led that committee was very funded by the energy industry. And he was leading the charge. The corruption needs to stop. It's evil. It's wicked. And it needs called out. And I'll tell you what, if I get elected and there's other really good representatives running this year, not only on the Senate side and the House, they're going to need your support more than ever. Because the establishment will go after us. So, if you choose to elect me, I appreciate that, but I do covet your prayers and your support, and I will need your ongoing support as we enter into that fight. God bless you.
Our fourth candidate is Jim Buck, State Senator. Jim.
Well, good evening. Good to have each one of you here. This reminds me of our third houses where we have one of these a month during session. We candidly don't have this many people here. If any of you have ever been to Noblesville, into their county courthouse, there's a sign over their chamber. It says, that government is best, that governs least. The problem is you don't hear the next 5 words. That government is best, that governs least, because It's people discipline themselves. Now you turn that upside down. An undisciplined people will require a large, unruly government. It's the truth. And we've got to ask ourselves, how disciplined are we to be involved in government? I've told people time and time again, all the lobbyists come before my committee, I chair local government. I already know what they're going to say before they say it. But the key words are, what do I hear back home? Many of you have heard about Senate Bill 1. There was a great effort to put that forward in 25. I heard from my local officials, I heard in Howard County, I heard from them in Hamilton County, how this was going to be devastating to them. I've tried to tell people that you can't pass one size fits all. It never works. But the legislature, it's not our tax called property tax. It's a local tax. I've tried for 5 years, minimum. Let the locals have all of their responsibility. It's not our tax. The good people back home, they're going to elect those people that use their dollars wisely. But who gets blamed for property tax problems? The legislature does. And then we try to fix it. Every time we try to fix it, it creates another problem. Having said that, if you and I aren't involved in our government, somebody else is. It was mentioned right here, the word representative. You've got to ask yourself, who do you want to represent you? This big fight started last summer, called redistricting. My district overwhelmingly said vote no. Now, did I represent my people, or should I represent Washington? There's so many people here who said, even in this room, oh, you should have voted yes. Well, folks, when you lose your voice at the State House, you have no power. Zero, none. And if your legislator doesn't listen to you and vote accordingly, why are we even down there? Just move everything to Washington. I resent Washington coming to Indiana and telling us how to run our business. I also resent Indianapolis coming here locally and telling them how to run their business. We each have silos. We need to stay in that. I've got a good background. I served 14 years in the House. I've served almost 18 years in the Senate. My leadership appointed me Majority Leader Emeritus. Why? Because I've got experience. Even the Democrats come to me and ask me for help. The Minority Floor Leader was delighted she appointed herself to my local government committee because she said, I hear you run one of the best committees and I want to learn from you. Well, I enjoy what I do. I enjoy serving people. I enjoy listening to their concerns. Certain issues are handled right here, not there. Too many times people come to me and want me to solve their problem here. For a long time we had 40 and 50 bills introduced by one legislator. You can't shepherd that many bills. I finally got leadership in the House first, and then in the Senate to reduce it 10 to the long session and 5 in the short session. Let me tell you, you pick and choose pretty well of which bill is important to your district. Prior to that, they would come to me and said, Senator, I know I've got a bill in your committee, but I appreciate you didn't hear it. Well, why'd you introduce it? Well, I got somebody back home and want the help. Well, then they'd go back home and tell them what an SOB I was, because I wouldn't hear their bill. That's not the way we're supposed to run government. If we're ever to have government of the people, by the people, and for the people, you got to understand, legislators, county council, commissioners, all of them come out of the people. We're supposed to be by the people. You elect your legislators, your different office holders. And then after that's done, what's supposed to be the last effort? for the people. But if you lose sight of what branch of government, you'd be amazed the people that call me and want me to vote or vote against something that's a Senate bill in Washington, D.C. They don't know the difference between a state senator and U.S. senator. Now, where's that fall the fault? We don't teach government like we used to. I call it old school. You have to be a participant. I've been a precinct committeeman about as long as I can remember. And I'm telling you folks, you don't know how happy it makes me to see you here. Because this is what we used to do. They used to meet in churches, because that was their community center. That's where we shared ideas. We shared grievances. But we don't let it become such a personal issue that we destroy friendships. When the wind farms went into Tipton, I witnessed families divided, parents against children, children against parents. Why? Because they were so entrenched in their own ideology and view, they couldn't get back past it. Folks, we're all Americans. We're all free. But there's a cancer on our society. It's called divisiveness. We may disagree here tonight, but I'm telling you truthfully, I love every one of you. Many in this room I've known for years. We pray for each other. My wife Judy and I have been doing this for over 42 years. We've worked very hard for government because we know firsthand how important it is that we serve the people. Like was mentioned, I'm not in here for the glory. I like to be in the background, to be honest. I don't seek out cameras. But when somebody in my district or somebody wants a picture with me, let me tell you, I'm more than glad because I'm standing next to my boss. I'm not their boss. You know, I've had my picture taken with 3 presidents. Never once did I think that that man was my boss. I always knew you were my boss. And that's the way it'll always be. Appreciate being here. Thank you.
Those are some excellent presentations this evening. You now have an opportunity as the audience to raise questions for these gentlemen up here. Things that are close to your heart, things you'd like to know more about, ideas you want to share as well. I believe the handout was given for everyone to have questions.
People can just come up to the 2 microphones.
Oh, okay.
They're already, anybody wants to come on up there. So that's what this is for, to ask questions. Please. Yeah, they're both there.
Good evening. Thank you all for coming. I have a question for Senator Buck. What I think is the most important, most pressing matter here in these United States, in Indiana, human abortion. We murder, well, 3,000 to 4,000 unborn babies are murdered every day in this country for the last 53 years. Those are real numbers. It's tragic. It's a cancer in our society. Since Roe was reversed, it's worse. It's gotten worse. It's easy. Abortion has never been more accessible for women, for mothers. For the last 53 years, politicians across this nation and this state have intentionally denied these babies, these unborn babies, intentionally denied them equal justice under the law. That's a fact. That's why it's still going on. Instead,
They have protected mothers under the color of law. That's what we've done. This is a,
Question for Mr. Buck.
yeah, I'm getting there. This is the official legislative stance of the pro-life movement in their own words. As national and state pro-life organizations representing tens of millions of pro-life men, women, and children across the country, let us be clear. We state unequivocally that we do not support any measure seeking to criminalize or punish women, as we stand firmly opposed to include such penalties in legislation. God hates the shedding of innocent blood. He hates partiality and unequal weights and measures. My question to you, Senator, is that your position? Will you reject any legislation that would abolish abortion and punish women? Is that your position? And I'll sit down.
Well, your question is pretty complex to say the least, but I've always been pro-life, have from the very beginning. I believe life begins at conception, and that's the bottom line. You either believe that or you don't. In terms of punishing women, sad to say, I know a lot of women that have had abortions. They grieve over that every day. Going in, they were told it was just a mess. I wear a pin right here. It's got the feet of a 10-week-old baby. I usually carry the little image. It's a doll, 10 weeks old. 10 fingers, 10 toes, eyes, ears, mouth, nose, everything. We had a debate in this very building a few years ago, and a gentleman and his wife were bragging about abortion, had one. I pulled that out and I said, this is what you aborted. He turned white, she left. I'm not here to condemn a woman that makes a mistake. Now you may, I'm not. I remember Christ made a very significant move to the woman at the well. I also remember a woman that was going to be stoned. He said, he who is without sin cast the first stone. I know I'm not pure. I'm not going to cast the first stone, but I'll do all I can to save the life of that baby. That's our future. We're down now to where we're about 1.4% rebirth. We said back in '74, when that was passed, that the American population will start to decline. And then there's going to have to be a consequence for that. They started off by bringing wives into the workforce.
Jim, we're ready for the next question then, honey, right here.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't know there was a limit on the question.
Okay, I'm short, but I don't think I'm that short. This question is for Mr. Vincent. And this is about the jail and the Christianity, the teaching of the Bible, the teaching of the Islam, and the teaching of the different representations. Are you going to continue that? Are you going to quit it? What is your theory on that one?
There's no way we'll go back on allowing Christianity to be taught in the jail. There's no way. From talking to correctional staff and some of the lay ministers involved, I plan on opening up the lay ministry much more wider and broader than it is now. I don't care for a lot of the visitation to be done through monitors. I would like to return back to, that's very fertile ground there. Very fertile ground.
It is.
And I believe that some of it should be more glass to glass or even person to person. It's hard to conduct a visit through a video in the back with all that noise going on and the ridicule that comes from non-believers to that person that's trying to believe or trying to convert. It's an interesting question when you talk about the Islam portion of it. There's laws, like them or not. When I was jail commander, we got caught up in that big Islamic push in the late 90s, and I was ordered by Magistrate Lawrence in Indianapolis to go find an imam. We'll go try to find an imam in Kokomo, Howard County in the late 1990s and early 2000s. So the search was on. In the meantime, we went and found videos that satisfied the court at that time that for those that wanted to practice the Islamic faith. This was right after the World Trade Center attack. And there seemed to be a big push inside the walls for Islam. And it went against my stance, but I had to do it because there are laws, the very laws that I talked about earlier with the U.S. Constitution. But we found an imam, and that imam and I, we got along great. But during a Christmas service one year, a lot of the Muslim inmates attended the Christmas service because, for those of you that know there, at the time we rewarded those that attended with oranges, socks, T-shirts, and things of that nature. A lot of inmates came just so they could get the free gifts. But some of the Muslim Brotherhood came, and they was a little bit disruptive. And I'll shut up.
Thanks. She has a follow-up question. And
Okay.
then we'll go to Dean.
Oh, go ahead. I have a follow-up I have another question.
So you can go first, it's all right.
Okay, this is for Mr. Russo. You're running for county commissioner, but you're only one. And you sit on the committee, and where I've sat and know people, they vote together. How are you going to change that?
That's a great question. So part of the strategy is to be a leader. What does a leader do? A leader basically tries to change behavior. So I think the thing is three principles that I'm working off of. One, I need to change the behavior of the citizens. How do we do that? We have to educate them. We really have to understand what the issues are going on in the county, and they have to understand what the tools are that they have at their disposal so that they can affect the change when it needs to happen. For instance, in zoning. Zoning happens at lower levels, at the Board of Zoning Appeals or the Planning Commission, right? When it gets to the county commissioners, unless there's been a problem with the process or they've changed the ordinance, by the time you go to a public hearing and a county commissioner, they cannot make the change by state law the way it's drafted. So we have to change behavior, and that's helping to educate the people, and that's what I plan to do, is to educate the populace. Yes, I'm one guy. I'm under no illusion that I'm going to come in with the big S on my cape and solve all the county's problems all myself. But we have to seed a new bed, right? And I think that's what I'm trying to do. I'm not a go along, get along kind of guy. From a Republican standpoint, I'm not the kind that lines up with the party politic. I'm a philosophical Republican, right? And so what do I mean by that? I mean that the reason why I align Republican is because they claim to believe in principles that I hold dear. That's what like Mr. Heffer said, that's what I align myself with. I don't align myself with the politics. And so therefore, my goal is to try to change behavior. That's ultimately what I think I can do as a commissioner.
Okay, thank you.
This one is for Mark Hufford. You talked about marijuana a lot in your initial 7 minutes. And I guess my question is, trying to remember how to word this. So, I'm personally not a big fan of marijuana, same way I'm not a big fan of cigarettes or even a big drinker. But considering a lot of recent studies showing that it's less harmful than some of those things, do you think that with surrounding states already having it legalized, that us not having it legalized is just going to lead to essentially us having the same problems that we had with alcohol during Prohibition, where it's still going to find its way in here, but we're going to be completely unable to regulate it? Is that a concern?
Yeah, great question. Okay, so it's interesting. The New York Times used to be a strong advocate for legalization of marijuana. Look this up. February 9th, 2026, they did a New York Times op-ed. It says America has a marijuana problem. Read the article. I encourage all of you to find it on the internet. Read it. Because the New York Times, a very liberal media source, is changing their position. Because of the states that have legalized it long enough, they're starting to see the downfalls of it. And that's the basis of the whole article. And I thought that was pretty honorable of the New York Times to be able to come out and say, you know what, we're changing our position on this. Because what they have found, if you read that article, in every state that marijuana has been legalized. It's an entry-level drug, okay? So I'll stop just a moment. I'm on the ministry at Turnabout Resource Center over in Rushville. It's an addiction recovery ministry, as well as some other ministries that deal with criminal activity and getting out of the criminal system. And so many times marijuana is the entry-level drug that these people find themselves in. This op-ed goes on and it clarifies that the states that have legalized it have found out that legalization of marijuana, in other words, we're going to wink at it and we're going to nod at it, we're going to give an approval of it. As a state, we may know it's a moral evil, but because of tax purposes, we're going to go ahead with it. That's the logic and that's the argument. What these states have found out is in every state that this has been legalized, they have a higher level of criminal crime goes up, homelessness goes up, domestic abuse goes up, and it affects the workforce. Now, if public service is important and we as leaders are to be caring about our public, our communities, I don't see how we as legislators could ever legalize marijuana.
Mr. Hufford, thank you for your time. Appreciate that.
Thank you. My question's for Senator Buck. Where do you stand on term limits? Are you pro or against?
When I first ran, I thought it was a great idea for term limits. It took me about 3 weeks to realize the error of that. We had a gentleman there named Dick Mangus. He had been there about the same amount of time I've been now. And I remember we had a big debate going on in the teachers' union. How much time do we have, by the way? 2 minutes, okay. The debate was going one way. And Dick always raised his hand, went to the mic, tapped the mic. Now, like Paul Harvey, I'll give you the rest of the story. He was in the office when the governor met with the teachers' union when they promised not to collective bargain for money. None of us had been in that office at the time. But Dick gave us a complete rundown of what that conversation was about. And Doc Bowen agreed to let him do it. 3 years later, they went to court and undid what they promised the governor they wouldn't do. That debate on the House floor at that time went 180 degrees because the man that was in the conversation educated all of us. That's where I've learned term limits, you got the hallway running the show. There's no term limits on them. And so it depends on how you want experience to play a part in your government. If you want to turn over all the time, that's up to you. But it's strictly a point where it's rare that you get let go because you have too much experience.
Okay, on that, doesn't the current system give us people like Pelosi and Schumer and all of this garbage we have in DC that does nothing but bilk us for money and give us nothing in return?
Well, I hope you're not confusing me with Washington. We don't have anything to do with them. That's their party.
No, but term limits are term limits. And
they select who they want. We get the government we choose. They got the government they chose. And that's why they're in such a mess fiscally. We bailed out this state that was in debt like crazy over 16 years. Next year, 28, the state of Indiana will be all but out of debt. All but out of debt. No debt. We were heavily in debt when Mitch Daniels came into office. If any of you are teachers, your pension fund wasn't going to be actually funded until 43. It's going to be funded in 28 because we made a promise in 96 to fund the teachers' pension fund. We're dumping in every budget, and go back and look, $2 billion to bring it up to current, where we don't have to spend cash. As a result of that, we're going to free up $1.4 billion cash to put back in the budget that we'll be able to do great things with.
Well, we agree. Don't vote Democrat. Thank you for your time.
Sure.
My question is for Senator Buck. You're just popular tonight.
Glad to hear it.
Yeah, definitely. There have been questions and concerns about China purchasing farmland here in Indiana. And what's your position on that?
Well, I think we put something out on that. For the record, in '24, we passed the first time a ban on China buying farm ground. At that time, it was strictly around our military bases, because that's where they were buying. The governor at the time, we had a 15-mile limit that we wanted. He wanted it cut back to 10, because there were 18 different deals he was working on with China at the time. So that's how we got where we were, but that was the first time. The Farm Bureau was heavily in favor of that. That's why they endorsed me. I've always helped the farmer. Then in '25, we came back and we said, you can't buy farm ground anywhere. It's not just China. It's all our adversaries. Don't get to own ground in Indiana. They may do it elsewhere. But so those are the things you can check. It's easy on some of the stuff you get in the mail. I think you're getting a lot of it. But you can make anything say what you want, even if it's a shade off. It leaves a perception is what's called reality. If you can establish a perception enough, it'll create a reality. I've never been in favor of foreign adversaries owning farm ground. Never.
Thank you, sir.
All right, I got a question for Senator Buck. Yeah, so I just kind of wanted to go back to an issue you addressed earlier, that being abortion. Now you mentioned something pretty interesting with the women and their punishment for something being illegal. So just to make sure I understand your position correctly, if abortion is illegal in a state, yet a woman is found to have had an abortion, it goes to the court of law, you would say it would be lawful for the woman to not be punished?
No.
Okay.
No, we already have laws for that. Indiana passed one of the best life bills a few years ago. I didn't agree with it because it allowed it up to 13 weeks. I didn't want that. I've said from the very beginning, life begins at conception. But if anybody, whether it's a provider or the woman itself, takes the life after that period in Indiana current law, there is a punishment that goes with it.
Perfect. Yeah, so just a little bit of clarification. You addressed at one point basically the idea that there's a sense of innocence to the woman. I can't recall if that was referring to when there wasn't law in place, or I didn't know if you wanted to clarify that. You said something about how if they're...
State it again, I want to keep track of what
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
saying.
no problem. So basically, you mentioned something about with the abortion, if it was held illegal or not, there's a sense of innocence to the woman and they don't really know what's going on. They're basically being forced into it. The clinics are basically telling them it's just a clump of cells, whatever, and so it's not totally their fault, if I understand your position correctly.
Every instance is individual. I can give you examples of a young lady that her boyfriend literally drug her to an abortion clinic to get an abortion. The abortionist was more than willing to provide the abortion. Now, what do you do in a case like that, where that young lady was in an abusive relationship? What do? How are you going to handle that? First, in my mind, you charge him with an abuse. Second, we do all we can to prevent her from doing it. That's where we have a program here in Kokomo that girls can go in and get ultrasounds, and a majority of them that do that decide not to have their abortion.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, just to be clear, I am pro-life. I did want to make sure that's clear, but I did have a question.
Most of us are pro-life.
So just to be clear, then you're saying that the decision...
So, this solar stuff, I'm okay if you want to put solar panels on your pole barn, I'm okay with that. Same way if you want to put a wind turbine up, that's fine. There was a representative put out a document this year in the State House saying we were losing 29,000 acres a year in the state of Indiana to development. I come from an agricultural family. I farm. We own land. We try to pick up more land, and it's extremely hard to pick up more land because we're not growing more farmland. So here's my solution to it. I believe in the private sector. I believe in this. If we deregulate family companies, people will start family businesses. Family businesses can thrive. The majority of our state is made up of small business owners. But as a small business owner who currently has around 10 people who work for me, I realize even individually how much regulations limit me. And they're regulations that just flat out are bureaucracy craziness. Some politician got some wonky idea and thought it was necessary. I'm like this. I think we need to incentivize. I want to incentivize my kids to be small business owners. That means deregulation. That's like what happened, Representative Hunter Spence, this past legislative session, he put out a bill. It was called the Small Farm and Homesteaders Act. And it was a deregulation bill. One of the most sensible bills in the State House in a long time. And it was to deregulate small farms and homesteaders from the regulations that the state has put on a lot of these individuals.
Thanks, Mr. Hufford. Appreciate that.
We'll make it unanimous here. I don't know whether any of you get Epic Times. If you do, this week there's a marvelous article on this very subject, on data centers. In northeast Kentucky, a farmer and his daughter, both women, was offered $26 million for their farm, and they turned it down. I want to emphasize these are local issues. The problem you're going to run up against, there you had unwilling sellers. Here, in some cases, you have more than willing sellers. Now, how do you determine on property rights? Are you going to deny them the right to sell their property to whomever they want for whatever price they want? And how are you going to handle that? Because if you've got enough acreage that wants to be annexed voluntarily, I've been a strong proponent of getting rid of involuntary. These people, as I understand it, want to be voluntarily annexed. So how are we as a local people going to handle that? And that's going to be where locals have to make up their mind between their commissioners, your ordinances, your zoning, as to what's going to happen.
Can I ask a follow-up for you, Senator Buck? You recently voted on a bill that passed into law, or just in February, about deregulating nuclear power facilities by taking IBM out of it. Yeah. And so I have some concerns about that, because that's one of the rumored things that might be coming here. And just what was your thought on that? Is there something, I wasn't reading that? Nuclear is scary.
If you read it, it's one of the best things happened in over 100 years. The utilities were always allowed to go to the utility commission. Based upon the input of their cost, they could raise our rates. This is now on performance based. If they don't provide to the customer a reasonable rate, they're punished. They're all so far private held equity companies. They're stockholders, so they want a certain yield. In all of these facilities, whether it's a LEAP program or whether it's here, we've stated the taxpayers are no longer going to pay for the development of the grid coming to you. The ratepayers aren't going to pay that. You are going to pay that. And so what's built out here, those companies, if it goes through, they're going to have to provide the drawings, the needs to the utility companies. And when they build in, they have to pay the utility company. The ratepayers don't. That's not been the case for well over 100 years. And so when we changed that law, it was an indication that utility rates have been going up. Why? Because the ratepayer has been subsidizing all the heavy industrial use. By the way, industrial use is one of the highest rates charged for electricity. But in this case, you're going to see that these companies that are high utility, gigabyte, just massive stuff. The one in Kentucky would consume 1/3 as much as New York. Think of that, New York City. But the ratepayers aren't going to pay.
Okay.
Hi, guys. Harold, this is my question for you.
Sure.
This jail is going to cost millions of dollars. And I just kind of curious of your stand on this. And I don't know how much money that we spend as far as taxpayers to take care of these people that's in our jail and in our prisons. What's your thought on putting them to work?
I'm putting in the work in.
Putting them to work as far as cleaning, doing work outside. I mean, we're paying for these people, and they are not adding anything to our livelihood whatsoever. It's costing us. The jail's costing us. Everything's costing us, but they're putting nothing into this.
Okay.
What's your thought?
Well, my thought is the fact that Sheriff Jerry Marr and I was the one who created the road crew as we knew it now, what I call the little black and white bumblebees that you see everywhere. And those can be hired for a certain amount of money per hour to do a lot of work in the private sector. And those gentlemen earn skills and learn skills that they apply once they depart. But in Indiana, you cannot make a pre-trial detainee work. You can make convicts perform duties, but not pre-trial detainees. Because if they get injured while they're out there, you're on the hook for their injury. If they lose a limb, you're on the hook for their disability. That's a lot about jailing that people don't know. Probably, without knowing the exact figures, probably about 80%, 70%, thank you. You want to be a major? Probably about 70% of the jail is pre-trial detainees, and they're basically there. It's a warehouse. Now the system's designed for them not to get out of it real easily, but I agree with you. I believe that once they're convicted, they need to perform. But even inside the jail, all the cooking is done by inmate workers. All the cleaning, the halls and walls, is done by inmate workers. Laundry is done by inmate workers. Where I see the future big trouble, since I was not allowed whatsoever to be part of this jail planning process, I was completely kept away from it. I think for obvious political reasons, is the fact that I think the next large federal lawsuit will be the fact that there are no programs offered to females to get sentence cuts. And in doing so, I would like to see the females stay where they're at. The males go to the new building. We could add another 12 to 15 years of continuity to both facilities. And now all of a sudden the females are allowed to cook. They're allowed to do their own laundry. They're allowed to do halls and walls. And we head off that future federal lawsuit that's going to be pending.
Thank you, Mr. Vincent.
I'm a little passionate about it.
I also have a follow-up question for Senator Buck. I'm a retired auto body owner. I've lived under insurance rule for over 55 years. It's because they have the lobbyists. In 1974, when I started, the insurance companies, most people don't know this, the insurance companies dictate to us how much money we make. It has been that way ever since I've been a bodyman. In 1974, like I said, our labor rate is what the insurance company tells us they're going to pay us. Our labor rate was $22 an hour. I retired 2 years ago. And if you'll notice in Kokomo right now, we used to have 60, 70 body shops in Kokomo. And if you notice now, there's less than 4. And the reason being because the labor rate right now, in 2026, is $55 an hour. If you do the math in that, we're working for poverty. Because I'm expected to hire people, pay my overhead, pay everything that happens in the shop for $55 an hour. And the insurance companies hasn't done this to our industry. Yet the state don't seem to want to do anything for the body shops. They don't want to do anything for us. They just lobby. The insurance companies got the money to lobby, and they keep us where we're at. And I've shut down because of it. What will you do as a senator? Now that this is brought before you, what will you do about it?
Some of this goes clear back into the 90s when there was an effort then to get rid of vocational ed in our schools. As a tradesman, I'm a tool and die mold maker. And when we went through this, I told the governor, O'Bannon at the time, I said, Governor, if you get out of this, there's going to come a day when you're not going to have tradesmen. And if you don't have tradesmen, the price is going to go sky high. And sure enough, we were shoving all of our kids off to college. Everybody's got a college degree. 3 of my daughters have doctoral degrees. If I were still in the tool room, I would be making more than my daughter that has a doctoral degree in education. Why? They're not to be found. In your particular area, the reason being is because we need apprentices. We need people that'll learn that trade, bring them in. We're only teaching basically welding. But from an insurance standpoint, now I don't sit on the insurance committee, but I do know this. I've pleaded with people in third houses like this. Would you please come down and testify in committee? If you see a bill that's coming before the General Assembly that you think impacts you, please come down. Because we know what the lobbyists are going to say. I don't know in the insurance committee. I sat on that in the House years ago. And I didn't particularly appreciate the way things went. And I wasn't on that committee very long. But I'm just saying it's an actuarial table that they use, supply and demand. And it's like, people, the rates are going to keep going up. A person at Stellantis, production worker, makes $83,000 a year.
Thank you, Senator Buck, thank you. Did anybody else on the panel want to address that problem, or did anybody else want to?
My question is for Mr. Hubbard. Fact, women anywhere in America can murder their babies with immunity. That's a fact. Same question as I had for Mr. Buck. And foolish me, I always thought murder was a crime. That's just me. Would you support legislation that would abolish abortion, including criminalizing mothers?
Absolutely. If you go to my Facebook page, you'll find a video where I say that. It's time that we abolish abortion the reality is we ought to value life. And I understand there's a lot of dynamics. This is a long argument. I understand that, but I don't see why it's an argument. Like, I'm pro-life. I'm pro-woman's life. I'm pro-man's life. I'm pro-baby's life, you know? And so then you got to do like these wacky mental gymnastics to try to define whether this is a child or not. It's like, really? Like, how do you guys do that? So to answer your question, absolutely. I believe abolishment needs to be the theme of our state. That where Indiana is a pro-life state completely, and I'll take this one step further, you didn't ask about, but the day after pill, or whatever it's called, that you can get mailed. You know, that needs to be, we need to stop that. That's not available. So yes. I'm going to say this too, because I've said it publicly. The senator mentioned lobbyists. I've been down at the State House the last 2 years more than ever in my life because I've never been in the State House. And I've seen how those lobbyists wine and dine those guys. And I want you to go back and I want you to follow the money trail. Because my incumbent, we all have to post our financials, right? Where our money comes from. And you can look and see where each representative or senator gets their income. And it's amazing to me how much they get from special interest groups. And I don't know, but I mean, here in the real world, like if you get bribed, like they expect favors in return. I mean, that's just real world here.
Thank you, Mr. Hufford. Thank you.
My question is directed to...
Hang on just a second.
Did you want to...
Yeah. Something you may not know, each and every one of you in this room has a lobbyist representing you. Every one of you. And we hear both sides of the coin. Then it's up to you and me to determine which side of that coin we're going to vote for when it comes up for a vote. But you may think lobbyists represent someone else. Every person in this room has a lobbyist representing them in some fashion or another. It depends on how you want to influence that lobbyist that represents you.
Can I say something on that? I just want to. You know, my lobbyist is the people that I elect. I don't need somebody going down there spending money to influence the people I elect to go down and do the job I sent them down there to do. I find it offensive because in the end of the day, you know, this is what people are angry about. They're angry about the money in politics. They're angry about people going down there influencing decisions of the people that we send down to do the people's business, right? That's something that we have to get flushed out. I don't need somebody going down there and representing me. I got a voice I can speak for myself. And I think at the end of the day, we'd be best off to get that squeezed out of our system.
Well, very good.
I think we need to go to the next question.
No, just a minute.
Senator
You
Beck,
said we
you
can
had-
answer this.
You had your
Yes.
time, sir. Okay.
This gentleman here made a statement, and
Sir, please.
very good.
Thank you.
Let him talk. Why don't we listen to him? I mean, let him talk and we will see what he says and then we decide.
Yeah,
What's
this-
about that?
Let's have a conversation, folks. This is what we're here to do.
This is for Mr. Huffer. Indiana House Bill 1166 is about hand-marked ballots and manual vote counting and going back to the precincts. I personally was on a team that went door to door in 2021. Not every door, they had it cherry picked. So this is my personal experience, not he said, she said. there's a definite problem with our poll books. We would go to a house, ask how many registered voters are in the home. We would have, they would say 2, and we would have anywhere from 4 to 6 registered voters that voted from that address. We found a place that had voted. There was no lot and no house, but there was an address that voted. So would you support this bill 1166 on going back to paper ballots, precinct voting, and one-day voting?
I would, yes. And you speak of that. We've been doing a lot of door knocking, and I've got some on my team here. And we've experienced that. We've walked up the doors, and we get a list. We've got a list of voters. Walked up the door that was a voted Republican in the last primary. So, and we find out very quickly that they are Democrats. So there's a lot of corruption in the voting system. And we've experienced that personally. So I understand, yes, we need to definitely do that, secure up the voting. Our elections are only as good as the voting process.
I just have one more question, and this is for, I'm sorry, I'll always call him Captain B, so this is for Captain B. So there's been an undeniable rise in mental health crisis everywhere, but also from the jail, there's been an increase in suicide attempts and completions, not only in Howard County, but in Miami County at their facilities. So do you have any ideas or anything to implement that might reduce that risk or might help better the mental environment for the inmates?
That's a very, that's an onion. There's a lot of peels to this, and the more we peel it away, the more it's going to stink. There's a push, obviously, for 24/7 medical around the jail. There probably needs to be at least 16 out of 24 mental health therapists on site every day at the jail. This is something that the county commissioners and North County Council will have to approve the funding, but it needs to be there. As far as the method that they use to commit suicide, we are way too dependent on the scanner that's there. This is going to get a little gross, but if somebody knows they're coming to jail, and particularly if it's either a female or a male, they can hide the dope in a body cavity in a feminine device. There's very few correctional officers that's going to pull that feminine device to check it for dope. It's just not going to happen. So they rely on the scanner, and it gets in. So at the very least, this is an operational procedure where they give me the dirty one, here's one of our clean ones. At least now we know that's not getting in. It's just operational procedure, thinking outside the box. Any jail in any county in Indiana is probably the largest mental health facility in that county without the designation of a mental health facility. But yet we keep hiding it. We don't address it through mental health therapies. Now, as far as inside, jail's a tough place. It's a very, very tough place. And it takes tough people on both sides of the walls to make it work. That's why the religious programming is so important. Therapists, I mean, I'm not convinced that we shouldn't even be teaching suicide prevention to the inmates, because humanistically, you're not going to sit there and watch somebody self-destruct. There's going to be that little part of you saying, no, I'm not going to allow this, and you're going to call an officer, you're going to make a yell, you're going to make a point, especially for that of the Christian inmate that's trying to do what's right in their lives. There's a whole lot of stuff that we could be doing, but once again, it's going to go to funding, and that jail has touched literally everybody in this room's life one way, shape, or another, either through family members or friends.
Thanks, Captain B.
Thank you. I had our DARE class.
Yes, I got a question just for the whole panel. So I know we touched briefly on the idea of term limits, but I just kind of wanted to readdress it this time just by going to each one of you. Obviously, you're all in elected positions, so just what is your thoughts on term limits? I think this is a big problem we're seeing in Congress, at least for me personally, with people staying there forever, being career politicians. And I know that Senator Buck already addressed this, but just want to hear all your guys' thoughts.
So I'm new to this. I am not a politician. I absolutely believe in term limits. I think they're necessary. I think we need to be able to, well, let's talk about George Washington and his farewell address. He talked about getting focused on poverty And he said when we focus on party, it will allow men that are unscrupulous to take controls of the reins of government and do unscrupulous things. How do we control that, stop that? Term limits.
I do support term limits. There should, it wasn't designed to be a career. Honestly, I don't believe it was designed to be a career. However, you got Sheriff Grady Judd down in Florida that I hope he stays there until he can't walk anymore. And he's on his 8th term as sheriff. But that's a rarity. That is a rarity. Public officials, I do believe, need term limits. Even when you get that good one in there that you want to keep, fresh ideas, fresh eyes. Hopefully they're kingdom eyes and kingdom ears that hear things through spiritual belief.
Absolutely, I support term limits. I signed a term limit pledge. The reality is we all deal with a sinful nature, and that's called pride. And I think too many times we get elected, and it can creep in pretty easy where we like the accolades, the attention, the pictures, everything that comes with it. And so sometimes with term limits, the current representatives aren't going to term limit themselves. Very likely, very few are. But to answer your question, yes. I think the states, our founding fathers looked at it from the perspective of statesmen. You go, you serve your community, you come back. You don't make this a lifetime event.
All right, then.
Okay, let's talk. So even if the other people disagree with me, so I want to give Mr. Buck the opportunity to actually now defend himself to what I personally call an attack, even if you didn't mean it like this, right? But please speak please speak to your colleague what you think about this. With the lobbyists, so.
One of the things you learn quickly when you become an elected official, I've got an MBA degree, I have a real estate broker's license, I've run my own business, had a lot of life experience. But once you get elected, pretty soon you come to one conclusion. We don't know what we don't know, because it's multifaceted. You can go down there and think that it's just me and my constituents. Well, you better hope to goodness your constituents, the ones you serve, have a plethora of knowledge, because we deal with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of issues all the time. One person can't be a genius in all of those factors. No one. But there's people down there that are genius in a subject matter. They're recognized for their knowledge on that subject. And when they speak, all 150 legislators and the governor and the lieutenant governor listen to them. Why? They know what they're talking about. Now, on the other side of that coin, we have somebody just as knowledgeable. They're talking the other way. The one wants you to vote for it, the other one wants you to vote no. Now, this is where you come back to the people and explain to them, like we do in third houses. Here's the situation. What do you think about it? Then it's up to the legislator to punch that green or red button, period. So it's a dear lesson if you think you're going to get in government and think it's just you and your constituents. There's too many subject matters. We end up finding out we don't know what we don't know until we get in that seat.
My question has...
Can I speak on that just a moment?
Sure, I'm sorry.
The senator is correct from my experience of spending a limited time in the State House. But here's my question, is why do we need 1,000 bills submitted every legislative session? Maybe we're down there for the wrong reasons. So I don't need to know about 1,000 things. I understand he's exactly right. But you know what? I'm only 49 years old, but I do have some life experience. And maybe if we're just limited on things that we're doing down there, we don't need all those lobbyists to come down. That's my point of view.
Do I get a rebuttal? So I would just say, number one, it wasn't an attack, it was a statement. You know, when we're electing our officials, we're expecting them to go down there and represent us. There's a lot of influence that comes in when you have a lobbyist down there. Like Mr. Hufford said, because I've seen it too. They bring money, they bring influence that affects decision making. I have a problem with that personally, because at the end of the day, you know, a lot of this stuff and a lot of decisions that get made affect my pocketbook, as does everybody else's out here. And we end up funneling out money for things that we may not agree with because some lobbyist said it was good for us. It needs to come back to us. You know, we need to be the ones making decisions about what we want, and we're sending people down to the State House that we believe represent the values or the things that we want, right? I'm not saying that, you know, I don't know all the ins and outs of what's going on down at the State House. I understand there's a lot of things. I agree with Mr. Hufford. Why do we need 1,000 bills every year? What is it that we're dealing with, you know, from a law standpoint that requires us to have all these bills? Have we not addressed every potential issue we've dealt with for how many 100 years have we been here? 250 years this year? Why do we got to create new laws to deal with something that's already on the books? We got to enforce the laws that we already have, and we don't need a lobbyist telling us what we need to do that.
Yes, sir.
My question has to do with the IEDC. They purchased a lot of property north of Kokomo, and we're in the process of purchasing the property before it was rezoned or annexed and rezoned. Are you in favor of the IEDC, or you want a full investigation into what would happen there, or would you be happy with it being shut down?
I assume you're addressing it to me.
Anybody run the state,
Okay.
both of you.
In the House, I was the chair of Government Regulatory Reform. And that bill, IEDC, came to my committee. You might be interested to know that bill was supposed to be a fiduciary between incoming businesses, employers, and the state to cut through some of the red tape and to expedite it. That was a good thing. But over the years, IEDC, unbeknown, as much as that's hard for people to believe, things get buried in the budget that you don't know is there. But once we found out the genesis of this investigation is the LEAP program over in Boone County. Farmers were being offered $110,000 an acre, hadn't even put their farm up for sale, hadn't even stated what they wanted for their ground. Now, do you know what conversion is for farmers? They sell ground. If they can sell it high, there's enough money they can go out and buy their farm ground. Farm ground, if you can find it for $15,000 or $16,000, if you're a farmer, that's a good buy, extremely good. What they were doing, they were selling that ground and at the very least buying 5 acres in exchange for 1. When the legislature found out all this money that was going through IEDC, literally billions of dollars, we said, wait a minute, something's not right here. And so we're doing a complete investigation, a complete audit. Some say there was a conflict of interest involved in that, don't know, but we'll find out. Whether IEDC should continue, I still believe there's an effort to have some fiduciary.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we're getting down here on the end, so we're going to have to start winding it up. We've got one more question, then we're going to have to limit it to 3 minutes for each of you on your final statements. So just so you know that. Last question then.
This is for Harold Benson. Harold, I've known you since 1985. I know without a doubt you are qualified but maybe everybody in here doesn't. What would be your 30, 60, and 90-day success plan, and how would you start? And then I've got a second question for you two gentlemen on the end, and you may not like it.
A 30-day evaluation of present operations before I would take a whole lot of immediate action. It needs to have my eyes on it right away. And it needs me to be able to make an informed decision. To try to change the direction of something that's big, that's a huge operation. It's roughly 175, 180 employees now with a huge budget, of which 2/3 of it's the jail. So trying to be precise into a 30, 60, 90, I'm already thinking 1 year, 3 year, 5 year as to what would have to be done. But there's a lot of things that I want to do. One is go in and I have plenty of people, both on the merit side, the correctional side, and the civilian side that are keeping me abreast of situations that go on. And they've got many, many good ideas, but they don't feel comfortable, especially at election time, to come forward with them all. So it's not like I'm 10 years behind the curve because I've been retired. But the 30-day would be to evaluate and get over 50% of the deputies out there have less than 5 years experience. The only leadership they know is what they're experiencing now. They don't know my style. They don't know anything about me. They only know what they're being told, and I can about imagine what that is. I would have to let them see what I'm capable of, and my major, and my chief deputy, and they're going to see true leadership right from the get-go. I'm not talking a Monday through Friday 8 to 4 administration. I'm talking about go-getters, and administration that'll go-getter. And I'm all about the concept that used to be, I want a kinder, gentler sheriff's department. Well, I want a Patrick Swayze kind of sheriff's department. Be nice until it's time not to be nice. That's a far cry from kinder, gentler. So I'm not really answering your question, but you're not going to find anybody with as much passion as heart
Thank
for
you,
this as
Mr.
I've
Vincent.
got.
We've got two ladies. This is really all about questions. So we've got this lady right here. We're going to have to we've got this lady here, and then we're going to cut you guys to 2 minutes at the end.
Okay. She forwarded her time to me. I am a local business owner. I do employ family-owned business. At the state level, Mr. Buck, we have seen none assistance from the state of Indiana during COVID, and any assistance. The body shop gentleman, I share his feelings. I'm a little more passionate about it, that we are allowing, or you are allowing insurances to dictate how we repair our stuff. And Mr. Van Adder ain't here tonight, but we had a hailstorm in Galveston, Indiana that destroyed thousands and thousands of dollars of automobiles.
Sir,
and we're getting resistance.
Thank you for your concern, honey.
We're
What
getting
would you need?
resistance
Yeah.
from insurance companies.
I'm sorry.
What would you do to correct this?
I'm sorry. I just have a question. You, I believe it was Mr. Hufford and Senator Buck had mentioned that you, or had answered that you would like to completely abolish abortion. Would there be any medically necessary abortion for women?
If I understood your question right, the only time I'm in favor, and that is between the mother and the father, and for the life of the mother. I had a gentleman tell me the other day, well, that's still murder. And it's like, what do you do when there's a mother of 1, 2, 3 children, and she gets pregnant purposely? But the doctor then goes and tells the husband or whomever, we may be able to save your wife, but in trying to save her, it may take the life of the baby. That's not for me to say. I'm saying, in my view, the only exclusion is the life of the mother. I've said that repeatedly on all questionnaires. How do I tell a father and those 1, 2, or 3 children, we're going to sacrifice your mother and possibly the baby because we're not going to allow you to choose which one, if that's the severe case, should survive. The mother may be able to have more children, but that baby will never have another mother. So I think I've been pretty clear all through my career prior to government. I'm pro-life, except only exception is the life of the mother.
I believe we're too cavalier with abortion. That's just how I feel. We're too cavalier with it. I've been in too many conversations where everybody wants to give the what-if scenario. This is what I say. We need to be about life. What does it take to save life? My wife and I have had 6 children. We know what it's like to have a traumatic birth in Methodist down in Indianapolis. Lots of blood, lots of prayers, lots of worrying on my behalf. But you know what? I have friends that are in the medical profession, and maybe some of you are, and you know what? With the technology we have today, they know if that child is dead in the fallopian tubes a lot of times beforehand. We need to have lots of grace. Senator Bach has already said there's those people who've had abortions that regret it, and I want to be very gracious towards those people. But I just think as a culture, we've gotten so cavalier with it. We need to, as a culture, step back from that and say, no, we cherish our young people. We cherish the future of our state and the future of our nation.
Hi, this is going toward Joe here. The last event that I was at, I was kind of under the understanding and what I've been learning from talking to many people in the county that we have been, over the period of time, losing our voice in the county. And that has been a concern to most people, and there's a lot of people that are very unaware of it. I'm not sure, when we come to officials and they listen, or they're hearing what we're saying, but our words are kind of meaningless in conversations, and our voices don't go anywhere. And where do we go to correct that issue? Where do we go that we might have to go above our county officials to get that voice back?
You have to vote.
How do you get the word out to people that are unaware?
Well, I think, again, it boils down to leadership. It boils down to what kind of leaders are we putting into office. Only about 10% of the people go out and vote in the primary, right? So the people that are voting in the primary are the people that are motivated to select whoever, whether it's the incumbent or so forth. And a lot of times, from what I'm finding, it's the incumbent that's getting selected by that 10%. People have to be willing, part of the contract that we have as citizens is to be engaged in our political process. I'm guilty. I've put my hat in the ring because I was one of the guys sitting on the sidelines, bellyaching, complaining about what's going on down at the state and the county. Until my 17-year-old says to me, Dad, all these things are going on. What are you doing about it? You're leaving it to our generation? That's a big gut punch coming from a 17-year-old. What we have to do is we have to put leaders in place. And one of the things that I keep saying is I want to educate the population. They need to know what's going on in the community. They need to know what tools that they can use to get their voices heard. I believe that some rules, and I talked to one of the judge candidates the other day, I believe some of the rules that the state are handing down are meant to be broken because I believe they're wrong. And the only way we can push that is to challenge those rules by saying, you know what, you guys are trying to come in here and dictate how we respond to our people. I'm sure as hell not going to let that happen. That's not where I stand. I think we need to let the people have their voice back. That's why I'm running, right? Because I'm you. I'm sick of what's going on. That's why I'm running. Do I want to be here? No, I got more important things to be doing. I got a farm, I got a business to do. but I'm tired of what's going on, and we need to get our voice returned.
I want to thank everybody that asked questions. You guys are my heroes. Thank you all for doing that. I really appreciate you.
The question, the dialogue, indeed, were excellent this evening. Thank you for being here. We have now a chance for the 4 men up here to give their final comments, about 2 minutes. Jim, if you'd like to do that, starting off, to give a final set of thoughts to the folks that are here that are assembled.
Be good to turn around and watch the clock. I too want to thank you for being here. This is a real treat for me to get to be with my friends, neighbors, and people that I've worked with. I enjoy serving you. That's the whole purpose of running. If you don't want to serve, you need to leave. I've been very fortunate. This is the first primary I've had for some time. Why? Because I serve the people. People have reelected me time and time again. Why? Because I serve them. I listen to them. Many people up here have said, I really don't need to do this. None of us really do. But service to me is a high calling. I like the Rotary's motto, service above self. And that's what government service is, servant above self. You better have a thick skin. You better have a strong backbone. I think I have both. I'd like to serve another 4 years because I want to see what labor I've put in to get this state fiscally sound, growing again. This will be the 5th year in a row we've had net gain. Like anybody, they like to see the fruits of their labor. The next 4 years are going to be great 4 years for Indiana. And I'd like to take my experience and make it great. So with your help and vote, I'll get to go back and work again for you. Thank you again for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here and hear your questions and your concerns. It's been such a joy and a blessing. I didn't get the opportunity to answer the question about the data centers, and I want to go there and I want to wrap up with this. I went to the meetings and I sat and listened. What was being said there, I don't know if it was truthful or not, but I'm going to let you know what I told my wife. I said, you know, I don't support the data center project. I support this expansion project in Howard County. But this I did say. If what Paul Wyman was saying is true, that years ago, back in the late 90s, the county council and the commissioners were having meetings about the future of Howard County. If that was so, let that be a lesson. Let that be a lesson. Because I've come to this I've come to this point, and I'm convinced myself to this. This is a government of the people, by the people, if the people will get engaged. And that's what I think everybody up here said. For my wife and I, we're just now getting engaged. I didn't even vote until about 6 or 7 years ago. I come from a tradition that don't do that. But I see, you know what? I have children and a future. And if I want to have a say in where the direction of this nation and this community goes, I need to get involved. And I know not all of you and not many of us are called to run for office and public service. And I understand that. But laying that aside, we all have an opportunity to engage. And I've been trying to convince my dad of that. He's 78 years old and he's not registered to vote. But that's okay. I do believe that we, the people, can make a difference. And you can if you get involved. God bless you guys.
Again, thank you for coming out tonight, especially in this kind of weather. I appreciate your involvement. It means a lot just to look out there and see the faces. These are the same types of questions that I've been asked now for nearly 3 years since my last campaign. I've listened. I had my ideas of what I thought should be done, but I've listened to you. A lot of what I've got outlined here that I didn't get to discuss tonight was stuff that you've brought up. And Mike, there's a lot of that can be initiated in the first 30, 60, 90 days that I didn't get to discuss. There's been a lot of roadblocks placed in front of me by some members of the Central Committee, and both past and present, but not all the Central Committee's members and or elected officials have been mean to me, but there's been more than a fair share. They've blackballed people that are very, very close to me for their political gain, and but I have no vengeance, no malice towards any of that, because I know where righteousness begins and humbleness is there with it, and pride will be their fall. So that's not left to me, that's left up to the Lord. But I do appreciate you coming out tonight, taking the time, because I know what it means to be away from your family, and especially on a rainy night like this, and we didn't know what it was going to be. I appreciated each candidate being here. I really wish there had been more of the candidates here. I questioned that, which we all do. I appreciated what each candidate had to say. I really liked what Joe said about philosophical Republican, because a philosophical Republican, without knowing where his head was at the time, is a constitutional believer and a Bible believer, that we will step outside of what was trying to be controlled in a particular party, because the control is very evident and the control is ugly. But thank you very much, and I appreciate your vote, your support.
You guys are tough acts to follow. I'd like to thank you all for coming out this evening as well. So I'm not going to freewheel this. I kind of put my thoughts on paper. So I basically want to close by saying that we need to bring this back to something simple, and that's trust. At the local level, everything we do comes down to whether the people we serve trust the decisions that we're making on their behalf. And that trust is built through accountability, transparency, and consistency. I believe we need to take a more disciplined approach to how we spend taxpayer dollars, especially with the challenges like SB 1 that are ahead of us. That means planning early, prioritizing wisely, and making sure that every dollar is being used effectively. I believe we can do a better job when it comes to development, making sure that zoning ordinances are clear, enforceable, and that they protect all property owners, not just those directly involved in a project. And I believe we rebuild trust by making sure people understand how decisions are made, so they feel informed, they're heard, and they have the confidence in the direction that our county is going. I'm not running to maintain the status quo. I'm running to bring a higher level of accountability, a stronger focus on doing things the right way, and a commitment to making decisions that serve the people of this county first. At the end of the day, this role is about leadership, it's about judgment, it's about responsibility. And that's exactly what I'll bring to you as your next commissioner. Thank you.
Our time has gone by very, very quickly. Again, thank you for those excellent questions. The men will be here for another few minutes before 8:30. So if your question wasn't asked and you want to talk in person, please take that opportunity. We have Chuck Frailer, part of Citizenship USA. We want to have him do the closing prayer. Let's stand for that prayer.
Bow with me, please. Our Heavenly Father, we do thank you for this evening and for each one that's here. And we just praise your name. For those that are interested in getting involved and want to learn more about these candidates, and we thank you that they showed up tonight to give us their time, give us their thoughts, and to answer these questions the best they could. And we know that you're in control, and that the result of this election is going to be something that is something that you're going to want to have happen, and that we just pray that we would be more informed because of events like this. Father, we thank you for each one that's here, and we just pray that as we go our separate ways, that you would provide each one safety, And again, we just love you, and we thank you for this evening. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen.
Hey, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine. You're fine. No harm, no problem.
That's